Hello, everyone. I'm over here on my phone trying to figure out why that just happened. Hi, Owen. I heard that as soon as we mentioned Manson in the beginning of this episode, and I'm assuming that we're playing on the same feed, or are we on a different feed now, Caleb, on Rumble and also we have
should be on the same Rumble.
Same one. Anyway, so we were talking with MC and Owen, and MC is the psychic medium from Staten Island who was tapping into Mama Cass, who was mentioning Charlie Manson and described him as a scruffy man. And then the lights went out. So we had a internet interruption in Alabama. And now we're on Starlink. It took about a half hour to reset that up. And Caleb, we need to work on your timing on that. But anyways, no, you did it. So that's good enough for me. What I found interesting, your Zoom kept going. So somehow the internet was working for you guys on his end, because you guys had a little chat behind the scenes when we were gone. And I guess Owen got a psychic reading. Her aunt came through and said she didn't really want to talk about this publicly. Well, she got her wish. Whatever you guys were talking about while we were gone may not have been Manson. It might have been your aunt. So I'm not going to give it all the power to Manson yet. But it was kind of funny that we were calling him out as a scruffy little man, which was also, he was described in a lot of books that,
scruffy,
have been written about him.
Scary man.
Yes, he was. Yes. Okay. So, okay.
Well, let's not talk about him anymore, because I don't want to invite him back,
No. I don't have fear of this. What I want to point out is that there was a reason that he murdered all those people, whom one of was supposed to be your mother at that party the night on Cielo Drive. You've told me that. And we know that there's a reason behind that. But when you guys
had she gone to that party, then yeah, we would have had a very different story.
And we know Charles Manson kind of went down the wrong path. Like, he was sort of in the scene with the musicians all those years, and he was affiliated with everybody. And then he had this group of girls, and he would bring them to Dennis Wilson's house, and they would have parties, and he would, they would give him a lot of drugs, and there were just parties. And your mom had parties at her house, and she also had, in the things that I've read about her, I've seen, she was part of this scene. Okay. And it is something that she doesn't want to look back at. It wasn't a great time, I don't think, but that was the days of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, the 60s and the 70s. It was a crazy time. Anyways, Charles Manson, to me, was very disgruntled with the fact that he never became a musician. But he also, I'm curious if there was a different connection because of where it was. Laurel Canyon was an extremely military-based place. It's where a lot of these rock stars came from the children of people in the military, post-World War II, people that worked in intelligence over the years. And with all the chaos that was going on during that time, they never really got arrested. They always never got in trouble. They got out of jail. They'd get arrested and they'd get convicted with a felony and only do like 10 months instead of 30 years. But that's what I want to know. I don't give a shit about Charlie Manson and his chaos. Everybody knows his chaos. You can watch the Netflix special Chaos to see it. But when you guys were chatting with your aunt, who I'm assuming you guys had a little love fest, and she didn't want it public, she made clear, and then we lost contact. What do you bring?
It happened right around then. I mean, I think nobody really wants to talk about that period of time. I don't think that my aunt is the only one that doesn't want to have that conversation. Most anyone who was around then doesn't want to talk about it. They just don't want to talk about it. I don't know what the reasons are behind that, but they just don't want to go there. So she wouldn't have been the only one that wouldn't want to have the conversation.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. So I don't know if we have Melissa. I think she's
Yes, you
gone
do.
for some reason.
I have,
Oh, good.
I have
Good.
about
Good.
10 minutes. But, looking into, I don't know where we got cut off. But it was quite interesting because the name of Terry had come through, and linking to
Okay. Big player. Big player.
Yeah, and it was so interesting because he was linking to me that his connection and a woman that he was with is who my mother is named after. My mom was actually named after
Candace
Doris
Bergen.
Day. So there's got to be something that links this gentleman Terry, because he is with this female with the same name of Doris.
Okay, Doris Day was Terry Melcher's mother.
That's right. And Terry Melcher was one of the producers of the Beach Boys. So that's how Dennis Wilson had introduced Terry Melcher to Charles Manson.
And he was also working with, he had been to the Spawn Ranch a couple of times with Manson and kind of promised him a record deal. And he owned Cielo Place before the
I think he was
Lansky
actually
and
I
Sharon
think he
Tate.
was renting it, if I'm
renting
not mistaken.
it. Yes, yeah. Sorry, you're right.
Right. So he
so
had
anyways,
been
okay.
renting that and moved. And then when Manson went back to, take it up with Melcher again, he wasn't there. He had moved.
No.
And I had felt
Okay,
a
so
bit
keep going.
different. I had felt as though he was sharing this home, or like kind of just crashing there, and that it was sold, but they couldn't get him out. Like it was a very hard thing to push Manson out of that space. And then I felt once he retreated, that's kind of where the anger started to build even more. But I have to say this, I do intuitively also pick up that there was a lot of corruption within the police department. And I feel that there was a lot of kickbacks that were being given, because I feel like he may have lived simply, but yet there's money. There's robbing, there's stealing, there's money there. And this is how we got around things. I also feel like there's a politically motivated direction. And it's like, if we can push it to look one way, it'll make better for this political agenda. However, I have to say this, I don't feel that there was any racial instigation, or, as much as this may have been created to look a certain way, I don't feel that it had any connection to what it was made to look like. Because I feel like he's trying to expose the police and the corruption by placing graffiti or writing something to point fingers. Almost like a subliminal message.
Right. So when you talk about politics, are you talking about like who was in government, or how government may have been involved, or more of a like military involvement?
No, I feel government, to be very honest. If I had to look at military aspect, I feel like there may have been influence from chemical or like generationally, like toxicity feeling that could have affected somebody's mental state generationally. But I have to be honest with what I get. And I don't get that there's a link to any kind of testing or experimental aspects to this.
MK Ultra.
I don't know what that is, but is that a remote viewing aspect?
No, it's where they give drugs to people and then they analyze how they behave.
With mind control.
Yeah, I don't.
Okay, back to the political thing. Okay, so you're kind of warm on the idea that I have. Why? Okay, so Terry Melcher lived in the house, and the story is that he moved to Malibu, and Manson was looking for him, and he came to Cielo Place, and Hollywood, because he was supposed to get a record deal with this guy. And the way that the news portrayed it was that Manson just wanted to kill Melcher and whoever was in the house at the time. But Manson knew that Melcher was gone. So whatever was done in the courts or whatever said that he wasn't there to kill Sharon Tate for any reason. She was just there. She was just an innocent bystander. And all these rock stars would have been too. John Phillips, Mama Cass. What did you say? The black one, the black guy, Rick James. Like these people were all supposed to be there, right? And they didn't go. But it would have been a bigger scene, I guess, if they were there too. But the Manson knew that Sharon Tate lived there because there was
She actually, I'm sorry, I just want to give you this before I lose it from spirit, but there's something wrong in the record is what I'm hearing, or the way it went down or the way it's recorded. I feel that people believe that the first time he went to the home, that he was greeted or asked to leave by a male. And that is incorrect. Yes. He was asked to leave by Sharon. She recognized him from the first time. This is incorrectly written, is what I'm hearing her say. Because she recognized him when it's like 2 times. So there was not a male that asked him to leave the first time he came looking for this gentleman that used to live there.
I believe it. I mean, it was written in her. It's just funny how I found this information, but he did come to the house and he knew she lived there. So that blows that whole theory that they were there to kill Melcher. But then Manson mentions, I sent this to Caleb, this thing that he said when he was in court, which was basically he said, I didn't kill anybody. This is the government that's behind all this. This is, do you have that quote that I sent you, Caleb? Because I don't have it in front of me. I'm so flustered from losing an hour of my show today. But Manson, I think, was hired by the government to kill Sharon Tate. From what this article said that I started going down this rabbit hole with, it had some connection with the Kennedys. And as we know, other beautiful blonde women have died at their hands in this era in the 60s of these parties and these, this era. And there was a period of time where Sharon and Roman lived at the Chateau Marmont. And in her memoirs, she just didn't want to be there. She didn't like this crazy time. And according to some people have said that he was basically filming her doing threesomes with a lot of men, like 70 videos. She was like basically doing porn. Roman Polanski was filming her with random people, 2 of whom may have been Peter Lawfrey and Kennedy, but we don't know. But then how she was maybe used to lure Kennedy to the Ambassador Hotel and when he was shot. So she was intricately, she was in the middle of this web, like you said. But she didn't like it. It was like 4 years of her life that were really bad. And even her sister said that she lost touch with her sister during that period of time. And she went crazy and it was terrible. And then she got pregnant. She actually got pregnant without her husband's knowing it. And that kind of ruined her porn career, I guess. But there's something else going on there. How Manson lived on this Spawn Ranch, this movie ranch, for a really long time with no money. So I'm just wondering where he got the money. Where I always look how somebody's able to. But I don't know. I found that interesting, and if you can confirm that theory, then I'll be happy. I don't know what you guys talked about when you were on Zoom together. I hope it was a great reading, but. This is where I'm going.
I mean, we were going straight for like a half hour.
And they're like, wait a minute, where is everybody?
Yeah.
Where does everyone go?
I was so connected to spirit that Owen, thankfully, was like, wait, I think it's just us. Because I was just going.
Yeah.
Well, that was Leah. But what do you think of that? Like, I mean, do you see any connection to that? Or is that just some,
Okay, so
conspiracy theory that
I don't want you to have an unhappy day, Susan Pinsky, but I do not feel that resonates. I don't feel it resonates. At least from what I'm getting. I can't say that I feel comfortable giving. Yeah, and I'll only give what I get from her. But I will say this. I do think that she fled to the UK because it's like so evident that I need to get out of here. Whether it was an intuitive
she
feeling.
went to the UK the day after he came to the door. Yes, that's true.
No wonder, because it's like I need to get out of here. But the fear coming from him, not necessarily I feel government or anything of that capacity. I feel she knew something was going to happen. And if I'm very honest, I feel that she knew that who she was with, the Roman name, it was not going to protect her.
Right. No, he was
I feel
a douche.
Selfishness, whatever serves me only. And I don't feel that she was comfortable or felt safe in his presence, that he would be protective of her. And I don't think she liked the chaotic scene.
No.
Okay, thank you. And the other aspect of it for me as well is I think she was asked to come back and against her wishes returned to the canyon. Because I get it as a regret of returning.
Yeah, I bet. Wait, by her husband?
Yes.
Okay. I
Almost
always wondered why he wasn't a suspect, behind this. I always wondered.
I mean, I
think
can't.
He was part of it.
Yeah, I can't say that. I agree. I can't say that that I feel wholeheartedly that he knew the extent to which this was going to happen. And I so don't want to say this on national podcast, but I do feel that he wasn't very much looking forward to having a baby.
Oh, no, he didn't want it.
I feel like this is a nuisance. I'm not excited feeling with this child where I get the excitement from her, but I get like,
he wouldn't,
oh God.
Well, from what I read in the Tate memoirs was that he wouldn't have sex with her when she was pregnant. So she was basically his porn star. Yep. She would do videos with random people. Like when they found the death scene, they found the video of her with two black guys getting raped. And the cop said, "Oh, leave it there. He's dealing with enough with his grief. Don't take the video." Like this was definitely a different era. You guys aren't used to this because you're living in a beautiful era. But in the 60s, women were just cattle. We were treated like dog shit. So that just to me was like 100%. He even the police were protecting them. And that whole Laurel Canyon area was, the police were in bed with somebody up there. Everything was protected. Nobody got arrested. Terrible crime scene coverage. Her father was in the military too.
They were a part of this. They partied just as much alongside these people.
Yes.
Well, certainly when they
get
did
out
drug
of jail.
bust, that stuff was, wasn't going into the coffers. Those guys,
yes, exactly. Because I get the word
where are the
dirty.
70 videos is what I want to know.
Dirty cops.
We're finding out all this stuff. We're like, because we have all these investigative journalists out there that are doing the hard work. And, I just want to know what the military connection was to Manson. And if he came to kill her, it wasn't because of Terry Melcher. That was just an excuse. Terry was, not a great guy, but he was hanging out with all the naked ladies out at the Spawn Ranch, whatever. Candace Bergen wasn't very happy about it. But women in those days had to, really do their own thing, and it was hard. And especially if you're wrapped up in some kind of a sex, cult. These are all these. There's this other guy named Vito. Same thing, sex cults. They were that's what Manson was delivering, and that was the cool thing, in those days, and then you had the celebrities living side by side with them, and the whole Young Turks and the everybody that's lived in the canyon, it all started with, the military being there, and all their parents were from the military. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more as soon as we let you go, MC. And I don't know if Owen has time to stay on, because both of you had a hard out at the top of the hour, and I feel terrible holding you over. But is there anything else that you guys discussed that you want to just, give the audience before you go?
Can I leave that to Owen to share what she feels?
I mean, I don't remember. I wish we had it recorded. It was, I don't know. I mean, I don't remember what we talked about. We just kind of kept going, and one thing after the other. And we talked about the fact that I was supposed to be there that day, right? She said Naomi was right.
Yes. There was a bigger protection in place there. And I felt the intuition of Mama Cass being like, this isn't the place, or I shouldn't be here. Mm-hmm. I shouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. And I feel it saved both their lives. Yeah.
She was also friends with Sharon Tate. And, I'm sure she mourned her loss.
She was friends with all those guys. The Wojciech, the boyfriend of Abigail Folger, was my mom's hairdresser. I mean, they were all friends. All those people were all friends with each other. Yep. Jay Sebring, that's right. And Wojciech was the boyfriend of, or I didn't even know the people that were there, but there were a lot of people that were.
Apparently, Jay Sebring was Sharon Tate's boyfriend before Roman Polanski, but then they stayed friends, and Drew goes, that guy's gay. That's why they didn't stay together. So, and Drew's going to come in a little bit. Yeah.
But I feel like he put up a big old fight too.
Did he?
Yeah, to protect her.
Yeah, when you have your gay friends, they protect you for sure. And it's so weird, but there is something else that took down Sharon Tate and her friends. I don't think it was the story they told, because now that we see how the government is involved in our lives and how things happen behind the scenes, it just makes it more clear that we're all pawns in this big chess game. And in those days, the news was just terrible. It was all fabricated just to, keep the status quo. But Laurel Canyon never fell apart, because of it. It just kept going, and more deaths and more drugs and more rock and roll and more sex and cults and whatever. It never ended. And I was trying to get Pamela Des Barres, who was the ultimate groupie in those days. She almost came on today, but she had to go to Disneyland. But maybe we can come back and get a little deeper into this with her one day. And I appreciate so much your time, Melissa. I understand that you have a person you have to go work with right now.
Yes, I'm going to love and leave you guys.
Yes, guys. Sorry about the tech issues.
Yeah, well, God bless. Worries. If anybody, wants to find Melissa, you can find her at, where can we find you? I have to find my notes here.
Melissa MC Medium on Instagram, Melissa Kubias on Facebook, or you can just reach out to Carrie 754-307-7772.
Okay, great.
It's really good to see you, Melissa.
You too, Owen. Always a pleasure. And thanks for having me, you guys. We have to redo this one, I think.
Yeah.
I think so.
I think there's more coming. This is the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, there's definitely a part 2 of this, guys, because we haven't even gone into the FBI connections and how strangely all of these guys that were involved in it had either parents in the FBI or they were somehow connected to the Kennedy assassination through some random chance. Like, these guys were all interconnected.
We're gonna talk about that with Addie now, because we gave him all the names of the people and who their parents were and the background on all these musicians that just sort of bloomed and grew in Laurel Canyon. How much time do you have, Owen? Do you have? I know you had a doctor's appointment or something.
I don't have much going on, except someone's got to let my dogs out.
Oh, good.
All right, I'm going to love and leave you guys.
You can validate some of this stuff. Okay, God bless. Okay, so since we're since Charlie Manson came on and shut down the internet in Alabama, I want to get a little bit more into his birth dates and what his connection was with Mama Cass. I know that they met. There was a big party scene in those days. And from what I've read, okay, this is all stuff, speculation and folklore or whatever. But I know that, he wanted to be part of the music industry, and the Beach Boys kind of took him in, and but he brought all these chicks with him. So, back in the day, it was like, oh, I have 12 women here with pussy. Bring them on in. Let's do it. Give them some LSD and you'll get whatever you want. Okay. Common thread in the
I'm
Laurel
sure he
Canyon
was trying
days.
to do whatever he could to get attention, to get someone to take notice of his music. Whatever
right.
that meant.
And he wanted to be a musician. But everybody wanted to be a musician in those days, None of them were. Like, your mother was an actual musician, okay? She was a qualified singer, songwriter, right? She was a musician.
Yeah. She wasn't a songwriter.
Some of these people
per se,
came. A lot, like the Byrds were the first band that started there, and their parents were military or government. The other
Not
ones
all
were
of them.
the
not all of them.
David Crosby. Yeah, but there was this connection because of Lookout Point or whatever at the top of the mountain.
Lookout
There was
Mountain.
a sort of a group, Lookout Mountain. There's a lot of people living there that were in the military and then they had all these kids that just became musicians. It was kind of a random thing.
I'm not sure I buy that. I got to tell you, I'm not sure that I buy that. A lot of those, the kids that grew up in Laurel Canyon are the kids who are my age, right? So.
No, I don't mean that. I mean the people that were first there when, Frank Zappa's father was, where's that thing? Okay, Jim Morrison's was from the Doors, okay? Not a great musician, but he was a poet. His father was in the U.S. Navy, who commanded naval forces, and also he was part of the Tonkin incident that escalated the U.S. involvement in Vietnam. Frank Zappa's father was a chemist and mathematician, worked in defense industry, worked at the Edgewood Chemical Warfare Facility in Maryland. David Crosby, his father was an academic award cinematographer who worked with the U.S. Army Corps in World War II, producing and training propaganda films. And then Crosby the Stephen Stills from Buffalo Springfield and Crosby, Stills, Nash, raised in a military family. I mean, most of them were. We were all post-World War II. Everybody had a military family. But they say a lot of these people, let's see, he moved frequently to different locations. And then, which means he was an Army brat. John Phillips was also, his father was a retired United States Marine Corps operator and mother. And he has like the craziest history of all of them, which just cracks me up. We were listening, we're like, oh my God, his family of origin was just crazy. But anyways, Van Morrison as well. Morrison's parents. But anyways, these were all like people that were in the military, or maybe also in some kind of intelligence level, and then having Lookout Point. But they had all these kids who started bands, and then they were musicians, but they couldn't play music, so they had hired these studio musicians to come in and be the band, and they were all kind of getting some kind of a record world together during a period of time, and having this commonality of people that were working in the industry is almost like the I know that CBS was also owned by the state at the time, so a lot of these record things like the Monkees and stuff like that were all put together later in the 60s to just sort of make money, I guess. But your mom came from the East, was already doing her band stuff in the East, and got together with John Phillips, and they all ended up pouring into Laurel Canyon, which was the weird part. Like, it was almost like they knew if they went there, they could make it, But I don't know. This is where I want you to talk about this, because what you feel, because I'm just reading this shit off the internet. Like, this is just stuff that I'm picking up from what I've read or.
Well, there's a couple of interesting things. First of all, I love Melissa.
Yes.
Love her.
Yes.
She's
And
the greatest.
when
She's
I
the
was-
greatest.
Isn't she we were talking about her when we were all like blacked out over here. By the way, I love your wardrobe change there. I caught that.
My black shirt, yeah, versus the light blue. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. The thing, there's two realities, and there's two realities going on now, but I feel like the dual reality started particularly in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s, meaning, yes, there's the military influence, but then there's the military industrial complex. Then there's the FBI. Then there's the agency within the FBI that's sort of rogue. And the same with the CIA, the same with other agencies, three-letter agencies. Now, when you two were speaking, the thing I kept seeing over and over, I don't know if you saw the movie with Angelina Jolie. I believe it was directed by Clint Eastwood called The Changeling. And it took place in this era before they started bringing in, some of them were manufactured musicians.
Right.
To create a movement to move the consciousness of the entire country in one direction. And that was also the time, and I know this part for a fact, but they're showing it, is when our government and our police, we had a terribly corrupt police department in Los Angeles, one of the worst.
And then
in
there was the
entire
mob too.
country.
Don't forget about the mob.
That's right. And they were the ones sprinkling LSD, honeypot traps everywhere, having people like, I personally feel like Charles Manson was grotesquely imbalanced. I mean, that's just the nicest way I can find to say it. But I also feel like he was connected to the military industrial complex, and they gave him women to go in as honeypot traps or whatever to get blackmail on people to keep them in line so that this agenda would go the way.
Right. And
it was
Sharon
meant
Tate
to
was
go.
one of those people. But she was doing it with Roman Polanski.
Well, I feel like she was made to do it. I don't feel like she wanted to do it.
No. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah, and I feel like I listen. The thing with Sharon Tate, I love to play with numbers. Sharon Tate is a life path 6, and she is born on a number 6 day. The address on the house where she lived at adds up to a 6. And the murder is a 6 on a number 9 day, which
That's
is an
so
upside down
crazy.
6. So meaning everything gets turned upside down. Now, there's the two timelines. There's the double reality. There's the reality that famous people, as you know, Owen, you are who you are in the public eye.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your private life that you want your anonymity and your privacy. And I feel like in that era, when most of these, I'm going to call them manufactured musicians and singers and songwriters, not all of them, but a lot of them to couture the agenda in a certain way, that's when they were infiltrated by the second reality, meaning there's the government, then there's the shadow government, there's the military, shadow military. These two things are going on simultaneously. And then there's innocent people, in my opinion, like Sharon Tate, that ended up with the wrong person. And then there's nothing nice I can say about Roman tuning into his energy.
God.
I can't find anything nice. But I kept seeing this weird thing where I kept seeing all these psychics in the house where all of this took place. And then I found out later that he brought them there.
Right. There's that, they had a lot of mystics and cult type people in there.
And there's two realities with that. The underbelly world, they have their warlocks and their witches and their mediums that deal with the dark stuff. And then there's the good ones. I don't feel like any of the people he brought in were good. I feel like he brought them in to cover his ass.
Right. Well, she dabbled in, there was like a Ouija board in her house, and they said that she dabbled in the occult.
Yeah.
So that was part of their little scene and their negative vibes or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like there was a wholesomeness about her simultaneously.
Yeah.
Double 6, so that's the home and the family and the Leave It to Beaver and the June Cleaver energy. And then there's the privacy and the anonymity, but then there's mass manipulation by male energy connected to her through Roman. And I feel like somebody was controlling Roman.
Right.
I feel like he knew this was going to happen.
He had a pedophile. He was in. Oh God, I can't even talk. He was actually convicted as a pedophile, and he was in the court system and whatever. But somehow he was able to get back to his country and get away from all of this, and he was protected.
And if these agencies we're speaking about were not intertwined with it, he would have never left the country.
Yeah, and then in a lot of the story, like this Vito Palakis, he had the same Manson type tribe, and they were like they called it the freaky dancers or whatever, and they just had all these women just crashing around there. Did you ever hear about that?
Mm-mm.
No,
Nope.
It's the same thing as Manson, but he was intertwined with all these people too.
And wherever they go, there's money given to them. Like, yeah, they lived in a hut out in the damn desert or whatever. I feel like all of that's fake, phony, and false.
Yes. I mean, it was next to a military base.
They just literally said he was hired. He was paid very, very well to go in and infiltrate this particular community, the Hollywood community, the actors and actresses, but also the music community, to get information on them, meaning to have something the agencies could hold over their head to keep them in line until the agenda was fulfilled, whatever that agenda was.
Right.
But yeah, he was a hired hand. I almost feel like he was mind controlled for sure.
Really?
Yes, I do. But he's creepy little dude.
Yes.
Just to
Careful.
start with, and he's a little.
Last time we called him that.
I mean that with light and love.
Don't say anything bad about him. We need to keep our internet.
But he is. They show him
Can't
literally.
talk shit about
he was
him.
going around as much as he could, drawing energy off of anybody with a pure heart. Thank you. They just said. Sorry about this, people with penises out there.
Well, it's funny you should bring that up.
Way easier to manipulate a man with all of this than it was a woman or women. But so that was easy to get any kind of blackmail on the men to keep the men controlled. Thank you. They also just said that this is another reason why the drugs and the alcohol was so rampant, because some people unknowingly were, in essence, kind of selling their soul to do the thing they wanted to do. And now they have this other thing over their head. And that's where the two realities come in. What you see up here, that everybody's dying to be famous or known, and then I'll be loved. And then the real truth behind a lot of it. Thank you. Can I just be blunt about something here, Owen? I feel like your mother escaped a lot of this. I feel like she escaped a lot.
Well, I will tell you that there's an FBI file on my mom. They were keeping their eyes on her in the early 60s before she came to California. So we can make whatever we want out of that, but that's fact, is that there is a file.
Thank you.
And
Well, I think that could have been the beginning of aspects of track and trace for whatever reason. Can I just say some things that come through connected to your mom, connected to this topic? Is that okay, Susan?
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, every time I went to call her like Mom and Cass, I feel like I'm getting yelled at. But in a sweet
don't
way.
do that.
You know what I mean?
Not her name.
Don't worry. Yeah, because it was like, oh my God. So I kept feeling that her whole path was about seeking knowledge and looking for deeper meaning and a deeper purpose. Everything with her, to me, when I tuned into her, was like trying to connect, wanting to connect, wanting to connect. And a lot of the people around at the time were not really connectable because when they're off time or whatever. But she operates to connect, and she's a genius mentality, by the way. And she's born on the day of the leader. But she's very strong-minded, very, very smart. She's good sense of humor. But sometimes she had to use it just to keep her chin up because of everything that was coming at her. And what I felt like she was saying she was shy at the same time, but she would push a boulder up the side of the mountain and kick your ass too if she needed to. So she could definitely be two people in one. I wrote down that she said she hated an effing liar. Don't come near me lying, because it would drive her crazy.
Well, there was probably a lot of that going on.
Very sensitive, very empathic, very intuitive. She liked her solitude and liked to process in that way. Keen master observer. She could study a pattern at 10,000 paces, and she could spot a liar at 10,000 paces. Now, sometimes she'd get sucked into things, but she was brilliant in that way. And you have a lot of that. I didn't mean to point at you. She told me not to point at you. I feel so like she worked hard from the very, very get-go. And I wonder if she felt she came out of the womb literally pushing that boulder of fairness up the side of the mountain. And she was literally born to be out front and center, even though there was a part of her that didn't like that unless she was working. There's workaholic energy with her. And her question back in the day all the time was, why isn't it fair? It isn't fair. So she had to work hard to make her own fairness. Now, this is some just weird stuff.
Man's world, for sure.
Yeah, oh,
that's right.
If they have a penis.
They were swinging penises everywhere. It was not,
the business that she went into was a largely male-controlled business.
Well, in order to get a job, you had to sleep with the manager and the producer. It was like, that's just all the way into the 80s. That's just.
And then what are the fat women do? Because the fat women weren't doing that.
Yeah. So she actually, it actually worked to her advantage, probably. She didn't end up like Sharon Tate.
Well, I just keep getting very psychic, intuitive, instinctual, organically speaking, where I don't know if this is true. I feel like she has seen this man face to face. And I feel like when she was alive, seen Charles face to face and some of his little flunkies that were around at the time. And I felt like she just knew that she knew that she knew. Thank you. They're also showing me where it feels like he might have then sent the women in to infiltrate her camp. Not in a sexual or sensual way, but to get the women in, because your mother had a healing energy about her where she would lift people up, connect with people. She was always seeking connection.
That's how they described her in the book too. But she did know some of the women from the ranch. She partied with them. She partied with Manson. She introduced Manson to some of the main players in the music industry. So they were, before he got really weird. Like at the beginning, he was just sort of, like you said, this scruffy little man. Sorry, Charles, but you were.
And she didn't like him. And she didn't like him. Thought he was creepy.
But they feared him, so they just sort of put up with, he was hanging out. He would bring girls parties, and he was driving around in their cars, and they were all high all the time. Just consider they were always high, like on LSD, which is not a great
constant state
drug.